the second thing I need to do is I want to plug in that other drive and see whether it shows up. I think it will, but we don't want to do anything right now because we have something working. So we want to, I think I need to make notes, but that's, believe it or not, that page in my notebook is the very last page of my notebook. I'll have to start a new notebook, so I better get a new notebook so I can write down what I need to here. There we go. Let's see. What color will this be? Let's make it 3 colors here. Blue. You're gonna make it blue, I guess. Yeah. It's gonna be blue. Yeah. I've got red, black, and blue. Red, black, and blue notebooks. This is going to be a new notebook with a new number. The old number was 35. This will be 36. It'll be book 36 with my initials, and book 36 with my initials, and book 36. Now I don't know. Maybe you can see what I'm writing. No, you can't. That's the thing. I want to show you. Maybe I don't want to show you what I'm writing because it's private. It's my private note, so I don't need to show you this. But I will tell you what I'm writing. Look, right, book 36. My initials, and that's it. So basically, I'm starting a new book here because I have to. Because now I'm going to get the time and date. It's this is page 1, by the way. So I'll say page 1. And I'll say 0, 1 over here, or what do I say normally? 1? 1, I think. The date, 2017-11-16, November 16th. The day of the week, Thursday. Now I say November. Written out in full, 16th. Time, 1848. Time is okay. Hours, Eastern Daylight Time. It's not Eastern Daylight Time. What am I saying? It should be Eastern Standard Time, eh? What is the time right now? Let me check. Okay, let's get a window here. Is it Eastern Time? Let's say time. It is time. Let's see. Time, Ottawa. Right? What does it say? Yeah, it's Eastern Standard Time. We're no longer in. So I just caught an error that I've been writing Eastern Daylight Time after the time change. I'm going to now after I do all this, I'll initial that. But I'll initial the time and date, and I'll write it again. I just caught an error that I'm glad I caught that error because that was not a good error to have. That was great that I caught that error. Now I'm going to just close that tab. I'm getting more excited now for sure. So what I want to write down is what I did. Okay, installed the SSD, crucial. Now which one is it we're looking at? Number 1, I said, right? I was going to call it number 1, but it should be called number 2, really. Which I'll give. That's right. Based on my original notebook here, on the last page of this notebook, I wrote in the serial numbers. It's good to have the serial numbers written, but I should rewrite them at the beginning of this book. So it's number 2. No, wait a minute. No, it's not. Wait a minute. No. I put that one in first. And in fact, I wrote which enclosure it was in right there. It's in the 2.5 inch. So it is number 1. That's correct. Good. But it's important to be fastidious, to be meticulous, to be exact when doing initial things with new equipment. I find it's much easier as time passes thereafter. So it doesn't matter how many mistakes you make initially setting things up. It's still vitally important to get it correct in your notes, and the details that you finally arrive at have to be exact. I mean, it's much better. It's very important to get the details correct the first time. See, I got the Eastern Standard Time incorrect the first time, but I mean, that was a problem that was starting several days or even a couple of weeks ago, maybe, whenever it was. I forget when the time changed. Exactly, a week ago or a little more, something like that. So I mean, that problem, I have to go back and change every entry in my notebook, but I won't do that now. And I'll initial the change, but I have to do that. That has to be done. So this one I don't have to put square brackets around it, but if I go back and change older notes, I'll put square brackets around the change and then initial it. I'll show that I changed it later. But it's important to keep exact notes and try to avoid those mistakes that you make initially. That's why you try to avoid them, because they're confusing later on. So I'm trying to get this correct. So I know I put that serial number into this into this 2.5 inch dual enclosure, which can hold 2 of them, but I only put 1 in there. I showed you that at the very beginning of the video, and I know the serial number. I'm going to write it down. It was the very first device that I opened of the SSDs. The first SSD I opened, it starts with the same few numbers at the very beginning of it, quite a few numbers, the same, because it came off the assembly line, I imagine, quite similarly, right, at a similar time. But it doesn't end with the same numbers, and I've got to try to get them correct here. That looks correct. But we do make mistakes quite frequently. Yet, we might get 99% of the things we do correct. It's just that we do make mistakes, and they're quite frequent, because if we do hundreds and hundreds of things, and we make a mistake once in 100, then there's a lot of mistakes being made. If we make a mistake once in 1,000 and we do thousands of things, we make equally many, or quite a few mistakes again. So in that case also, so I'm going to write down now, it's 2 terabytes, right? I'll say it's inside, and I'll write down the actual unit, this other unit, and now I should write its serial number too, really. If I want to know for sure what was done, I'll write the model number, and I'll say it was off, which means individual single drives. Single drives in brackets, and then I can write the serial number for that device. I'm going to get better at this. That's the thing. This is new equipment, so there, I've got the serial number. I mean, I'm going to get better. It's new equipment. It's going to be confusing a little bit, but it's going to rapidly ramp up. The learning curve will rapidly, not gradually, but rapidly speed up here with new equipment, if I've done anything similar in the past. Even if I haven't, if I've used numbers before, I'll learn these numbers quickly. Now that was mounted, and then in Sierra, I'm in High Sierra. Okay. Then I booted. Then in High Sierra. Okay. But now I'm now, right, and the drive was not seen. But okay, the other thing I mounted was, but before that, I'll say but before that in my notes. Before that, well, I also put in brackets, seen in Sierra. But since I didn't go back very far, I won't have put square brackets around it. It's seen in Sierra. But before that, comma, I also mounted, I installed, I'll start again, a new line installed, and then I'll say the other serial number, which is the, that's right, I installed the second, which would be the second serial number here. I installed SSD, but since it was only a single enclosure, this is a dual enclosure, right? Yeah. That's a dual enclosure. It's a dual enclosure. I'll put in my original. Once again, since I'm not going back very far, I'm not going to have to put square brackets around it. I'm still making an entry. Half of the entries in the old notebook and half is in the new notebook, but I want to get it all. That's the dual enclosure. I put the serial number for it, and then I put in brackets dual enclosure. and the serial number of the SSD is prior to that on the line with the model number. So I have everything there. But the second device, I put the serial number of that device, but not the SSD. So, and it doesn't have any switches off. It's just a single enclosure. So this is actually a RAID device. It's set for single. Yeah. So I better say it's set for single devices somewhere, but it's okay because it's off, which means single. Well, I'll say off equals single. Off equals single. In brackets. There's a little bracket wherever I can fit it in after the serial number of the SSD. So now when I come to the second device, it's a single enclosure. It's a single enclosure. It's a USB 3.1. That's right, USB 3.1 enclosure. And I'll also say, I'll say with SSD, and I'll write the, now you want to make double check, triple check, quadruple check this part when you've done so many things like this, and you don't want to write the wrong serial number. So make sure that it's the one that I think it is, not the one that I put for the other one. It's the one, because they're almost identical for the first bunch of numbers. You could get them mixed up very easily too because of that. I'm going to write down the first bunch of numbers that are the same. Now I want to note that I'm writing down the second one. Maybe I should say 1 and 2 here. I'm going to label this 1, circled 1, and a circle around a 2. So I know they're 1 and 2. That's the best way now, because I know which is 1 and 2. 1 is in the dual enclosure, the 2.5-inch dual enclosure, and forget the model number. It's called an MX. The other one, the single enclosure, I've got it. It's not within my sight right now. It's not called an MX. It's called an A31, let's say, or whatever. It's a different. But I'm writing down the serial number of the second SSD now, which differs in the last several digits here. You need to double, triple, quadruple check this when you're doing it. Do not get it wrong. Okay, that is correct. It's exactly correct. This is number 2. I'm going to put the 2 here again. I'm going to put number 1 for this device on the line where the serial number is for each of them, of the SSD. I'll put the number. So now I've specified. Okay, and then I'll say, but I also want to write 2 more serial numbers here. I don't want to write any more in this book because there's 2 more. I have this other device here, one of which I haven't opened yet. This device here. It looks like it's going to work though. I think we might be able to do it. But without Sierra, I don't think we could have done this. So it's very, very important to keep your old version of your operating system running on another disk somewhere. Is what that is teaching me. Here's the serial number of this device. It's the NX. It's the Nexstar MX. It's an MX as well. MX means a multi-enclosure, I think, or something like that. A RAID possibly is what it means. Because they're both RAID units. They have switches inside them. But I haven't opened this one up yet. This is the 3.5-inch. It's a 3.5-inch enclosure. I've got it upside down here in my hand, but it doesn't matter. The serial number's on the bottom, so I need to write down this the model number here, and I'm just writing down the model numbers, NST with the serial number. See if I can get this model number plus the serial number all on one line, so I can have room for the last one. And then I'll leave space for that, but I won't be able to do it till I open the package. And it's called the NST-400 MX. Why is it 400? I don't think you can put 4 units in it. Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. You know what? You might be able to put 4. You might be able to put 4 SSDs in each of these. I think that might be what that is. And then it's 400 MX-S3. The other one was S3. The bigger, sorry, the smaller dual 2.5-inch dual RAID drive enclosure was actually a dash S3. This is a dash S3R. Don't want to get it wrong. I've got to be careful here. S3R. Okay. I've kind of botched the S. I think it's visible. Let's see. So this is I'm going to put in on the side 3.5-inch enclosure, and the other one, this is a 2.5 inch, the single one, a single 2.5 inch. This is dual 3.5, right? But I think the other one was a dual. The small one is you can only put 2.5 inch. So, but it's so when I wrote 2, that's right, for the SSDs, then I wrote the number. This is a dual 2.5 inch. So I need to keep track, and actually these two are RAIDs too. This is a RAID, I'll put in brackets, RAID. RAID just means you can configure the drives as other than individual drives. Let's not get into that. But one of the things you can do is you can combine the two drives to make one big drive out of the two drives. It's called concatenation, or just a bunch of disks. But it's confusing because some people use that term, just a bunch of disks, to refer to single drives. So it's very confusing to talk about JBOD. Anyway, but RAID 0 is another type of RAID. So is RAID 1, RAID 10. RAID 10 requires 4 disks, though, four drives, not just 2. RAID 1 and RAID 0 only require 2. RAID 5 requires more than 2. You've got different types of RAID. All the other RAIDs, like the RAID 1, 0, 5. Well, RAID 1, no. RAID 1 is just two identical disks. Copies of one is a copy of the other. They're identical. RAID 0 and RAID 5 and RAID 1, 0, or 10, those are all more complex because they split the file across. They stripe the file. It's called striping. They stripe the file across the two disks so that no one file is contained on either disk. So if one of the disks fails, you lose all the files because the files are shared between the two disks in some fragmented way, partial striping of data. So that enables things to be, with RAID 0, you can read and write much faster, twice as fast, because you can read both drives simultaneously, and you can write both drives simultaneously over the bus, or over the data bus. So that's the way that it's parallel. It can do both drives at the same time, which speeds things up, especially when you're limited by the speed of the read and write of each drive. So that's the reason why. But RAID is just, it's not nowadays. It might work well with these SSDs. I don't know yet. I don't have enough confidence to know that. But I need to write down the serial number here. Got to sneeze. But the thing I want to say, I do want to say about that is, because hard drives have gotten bigger in the spinning disks. Spinning disks fail. Maybe they don't fail any more often, or maybe they do, because spinning disks are so large, when a RAID drive fails, you have to rebuild that drive. Even if you have a system where you can, like RAID 5, if you lose one of your disks, you can still rebuild it by replacing it with a blank drive, and it will rebuild that drive because it has enough data. There's redundancy in RAID 5. However, it takes so long to rebuild a 6 terabyte drive, or it might be a bigger drive than 6 terabytes, but it takes hours and hours and hours to rebuild it. And while it's rebuilding it, another drive might fail. So, and the problem is bigger drives, I think, fail. I think they've found that as drives have gotten bigger, the failure rate has gone up. I think that's the reason, but I haven't researched it thoroughly enough. But that I read that somewhere, and that seemed to me to be a good explanation of. It's a good reason why I don't desire to use RAID. I don't feel a need to use RAID, even though you can write much faster. It's not archival. It's for speed. Okay, so I'm interested in archiving. That is the reason that I'm buying these devices, and I'm buying these devices because they're inexpensive. So I'm going to put the serial, and they're quality but inexpensive. So here's the serial number for this one. Got to be careful. Okay. Okay. I know it seems like I'm taking a long time. Okay, there it is. That's the serial number of this particular unit. Right, okay. I don't need to put the manufacturer's name because the model numbers are unique to this manufacturer in almost, I would think almost every case, but I wouldn't be able to say every case with 100% certainty. I suspect the model numbers are unique in every case because the manufacturer doesn't want to produce any piece of equipment that has the same exact model number as anyone else's equipment. They must be unique. I would think that would be an absolutely crucial, or pardon the pun here, but an important, vital, not just for trademark reasons and for all sorts of reasons that they want to have unique, but also for the pride of the production of the uniqueness of the production of the device they're making, for their pride and for the morale. They want to have a unique name, so the model numbers, I think, are guaranteed to be unique, and they identify the manufacturer. But I got to double check the serial number. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. It's good. Okay, exact. It's right. Okay, but I haven't opened the other box. I need to open the other box later. I'll do that off camera, I think, but I'll save a line for doing that. This is a dual drive. It's a dual enclosure, right? It may not be dual. Hang on. I think I need to look up. I'm going to look up the. I'm going to look up the model for this device here, the NST-400MX. If I put that in, I should find immediately Vantech's website. There it is. And here is the. There is the actual page, so it's a unique, even that much of it, NST-400MX is a unique name that enables me to go immediately, not only to Vantech's website, but to the exact page where the spec sheet is located for that drive, enclosure, and the support page is there, the description, everything is there on that page. It says it's 2 bays for 3.5. Oh, there it is, look, yes, 4 terabytes per bay, for a total of 8 terabytes. The single enclosure I installed the drive in, it's maximum 2 terabytes, which is exactly the size of the drive, except it's actually 2.05, isn't it? So, but that might be okay, I hope. But we're just testing. I want to test the speed. And this is where I want to get to the point. I was trying to get to this point earlier. Why am I doing this in this way? What am I doing initially? What with these new drives? I wish to test these drives using Blackmagic. Blackmagic is a program you can download from the internet, but I don't think I've got it installed in Sierra. No, I don't think I do, but I can install it in Sierra if I need to. But I have it installed in High Sierra, and I'm planning on installing it in High Sierra. I've already got it installed in High Sierra, but I'm planning to install these drives, and then I can go into reboot High Sierra and test the speed of these interfaces of these enclosures using these SSDs, which are capable of about 550 megabytes per second maximum. So if I get less than that, how much less I get will be characteristic of the interface, the enclosure itself, that is, plus I'm going through a Thunderbolt connection into the Sonnet Echo 15 Plus dock, the Sonnet dock, and then I'm going into the USB ports of that. That unit has USB, or sometimes I'm going into the eSATA port, or maybe I'll be going, those are my only options, the USB or the eSATA, I believe, from that port. And I chose to do it that way because I believed that the speed was going to be as good that way as any other way that I could do, and I didn't have to buy a very expensive enclosure. And because I'm only using Thunderbolt 1, Thunderbolt 1 is maximized. The absolute speed limit of Thunderbolt 1 has been documented as 7 or 800, let's say 800 megabytes per second. No faster. It's not possible to go faster with Thunderbolt 1, no matter what you do. it's been documented. So 800 megabytes per second. Now we can get into Thunderbolt 2 and all that, but I know it's 1300 and something megabytes per second for Thunderbolt 2, and it's 2700 and something megabytes per second for Thunderbolt 3. So you can do the math, whatever, but that's exactly 1350, I think it is, and 2750. But forget the 50, it's just 1327 is close enough. 800, 1300, 2700. Those are the relative real-world speeds of Thunderbolt 1, 2, and 3. 800, 1300, 2700. That's quite a bit less than what the actual maximum theoretical speed is of those interfaces. So if my Thunderbolt 1 can do 800 megabytes and my SSD can do 550 maximum, then that's a fairly reasonable comparison, especially considering I might be running more than one SSD at the same time and writing from one to the other, or writing to two of them at the same time from some other drive on the same Thunderbolt interface. So I'm taking data in and putting data out twice at the same time. Now Thunderbolt works bidirectionally, so it's a bidirectional interface. It comes both ways simultaneously, so that's possible that the incoming is not going to slow down the outgoing, but the two outgoing will clearly be it will be slowing down based on the limitation of the 800 megabytes if each of them is more than 400 megabytes. So it's not unreasonable to design a system where each of the drives is capable of 550, but the interface is capable of 800. That's not unreasonable, especially since we're not going to get 550 on each of the drives anyway, because, well, for one thing, I told you before, the eSATA is only capable of 375, in this case through the Sonnet dock. And we know that the maximum possible with SATA itself, I just said it's 750 because it's 375 times 2, but it's based on the 6 gigabits per second divided by 8 bits per byte, gives us 750 megabytes, equals the same thing as 6 gigabits per second. So 750 is the maximum that megabytes is the maximum that SATA can do, and 800 is the maximum that my Thunderbolt 1 can do. So it's a very good fit. It's a very good fit to use SATA devices running on Thunderbolt 1, and the fact that I can split them into two and then send data to two drives at the same time, that's acceptable too, because I could copy a file to one, and then and before that copy is finished, I can copy the same file or whatever I want to the second drive, and they can be running in parallel. Now, if you can see that if you had too many drives, if you're writing to more than a few drives, that the Thunderbolt will be, it won't be adversely affected. It just won't run at a full speed at the maximum that each of those drives can actually sustain. So it's a good design to under design a little bit. It would also be overkill to have the Thunderbolt run at 10 times the speed of any one of the drives, because I'm not going to be writing to 10 drives at the same time. So this is I'm trying to design a system. Now I'm testing. This is the point where I'm testing, okay? And I don't know what I know what I expect I might find, and this is why I chose these devices. I know I'm expecting to find about 300 or 350 or something like that megabytes per second for these SSD drives, but I don't know. But that's only the best case. It could be less. I don't think it's going to be more than 350. And I'm basing that on my other on the research that other people have done with and the videos that I've seen displaying the work that these other people are doing, using these exact same drives, using very similar SSDs, and I don't think they're identical SSDs, but they're all SSDs, all SATA SSDs, SATA 3 SSDs are similar in their speed capabilities at this point, in this juncture in time in the industry, in the PC hardware industry. show, or what are we going to call it? Accessories, PC accessory industry, the hard drive, the SSD industry. That's flash memory is a form of, in a way, it's a form of flash memory. So now I'm going to be writing down that serial number of the last device. So let me write in the model. It's the same model, unless the last one has something wrong with it. We're assuming we're going to be testing it too, but that'll mean we'll have to disassemble something. But let me just write down. Then I can repeat the S3R, and then it will be clear that the first one was an S3R. Also, I won't have to rewrite that. So there. Now I'm just leave a space for the serial number there for the second one that I haven't opened of the two 3.5-inch drives. But what I'm checking, I just dropped my new notebook. But what I'm checking, I'm going to write down now. I installed this other SSD, okay? SSD, Crucial. It's a Crucial. Crucial is a good manufacturer, one of the best manufacturers of integrated circuits. And the integrated circuit, their real name is Micron. The IC manufacturer is Micron. Micron's known to be one of the best IC manufacturers in the world. So their brand of SSD is not called Micron because, you know, Micron manufactures integrated circuits for many different purposes, whereas Crucial is the name they chose for their memory products, which are based on integrated circuits. They make Crucial memory for RAM, which I was thinking of getting some RAM for my iMac, which it still has some upgrading that can be done, but I can wait till the price goes down a little bit on that. But Crucial makes also SSD memory, which is flash memory, which is different from RAM, and it's more permanent, of course. RAM is just volatile memory, which requires power, so there always has to be power to sustain RAM storage of the ones and zeros that make up the data. SSDs they're non-volatile, NVM non-volatile memory, NVM, and they're making a new format called NVMe, which is NVM Express, which uses PCI Express as an interface instead of SATA, which is capable of much faster speeds in the neighborhood of 3,000 sometimes megabytes per second. But these NVM drives they're putting them into laptops now, the MacBooks and things like that. But they're going to be. I'm sure they're in. I'm only paying attention to the Apple product, so I don't know what the other ones are doing. But I would be would be a pretty good guess to assume that they're putting them in all sorts of laptops now, and they're very fast, much faster interface. I can also get a box if I wanted to. I could get a box, drive an external box. It's exciting. I don't want to say too much about it, but I could do it with my iMac through Thunderbolt. I could get an expansion box, and I could put a PCI card in it. And that PCI card could plug in, it could be the NVMe format of an SSD. But I wouldn't be too confident because there's not many people using exactly the same equipment and plugging in exactly the same things. And where do you buy the box, and where do you get it has to be compatible and so on. It should be compatible, it should work, but the other thing is the price is too high. So high that if you bought it and it didn't work, it's a waste of money, first of all, but it's also, it's potentially going to be, it's not just whether it works, it's whether you can boot from it. If you can't boot from it, why are you paying so much money? So, I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of cases where you can't boot from them. In the future, that'll change, I think. But it's a situation where I would pay $2,000 and I'd get 1.2 terabytes, and that's all I'd have. So it's not worth it to get the expansion box plus the really expensive, even though it's guaranteed for 10 years, whatever it is, the drive that Intel makes, the 750 series, really good, really fast, beautiful, but only 1.2 terabytes compared to 2 terabytes for much less money. Those drives are in the neighborhood of 1,300 Canadian, or sometimes on sale you can get a different form factor. I saw one for 800 Canadian in a different form. It's NVM, but it looks like a SATA container. It looks like the same 2.5 inch. It's a 2.5 inch, but it's not SATA. It uses the what's the interface called? I'm trying to remember now. Well, the M.2, I think. The M.2 interface. But there's a special cable. You have to. It only plugs into certain PC motherboards, not Macs. They haven't got it plugged into Macs yet, so I don't. So it's you know, so some people can do that, and I could have got that if I had a PC with the right motherboard, and a certain type of motherboard, ASUS or whatever, ASUS. But it's a long research project I did to come to the conclusion that I shouldn't bother with that just yet. I still might be able to do it in the future, even with my iMac, because it's going to be fantastic in the future. It looks like, with all these devices, as long as they are backward compatible with Thunderbolt 1, but the thing is, I'll only be able to get 800 megabytes per second. Like I said, with Thunderbolt 1, I can't get 3,000 megabytes per second. So, and even if I put a drive into my computer, it's going to be SATA. If I were to open up the iMac, is another possibility. It's hard. It's very not non-trivial to open up an iMac, even with my model. But my model has 3 SATA interfaces, and 2 of them are SATA 3. One of them is SATA 2. So I could put in 3 SSDs into my computer. They wouldn't all run at full speed, but it's possible. But they would be SATA, and that's limited, like we said, to 750 megabytes per second. That's not going to ever be 3,000. So I don't know yet. And I think, but Thunderbolt 1 can never be more than 800. So, and 750 is the limit of SATA. So we're not talking about we're not talking about 3,000. But I think if I had an external drive that could do 3,000, I could get 800. That's the thing. I could get the full 800. So it definitely, and then later, when I could get a new computer with Thunderbolt 3, I could use that and I could get the full. Well, what are they saying now? Even these drives, they're making these enclosures that are they're making 4 slot enclosures for 4 SSDs, but they're not putting good enough circuitry in them that can do 4 times the speed of an SSD. So even if you multiply 550 by 4, you'd get 2,000, whatever, 2,200 or something like that would be the speed you could get in terms of 2,200 megabytes per second if you hooked them all up parallel like RAID 0. However, that might be a great thing, but the drawback is, right now, what did I say the limitation of Thunderbolt 3 was? 2,700 megabytes per second. So it could do it, but they're not building, even the boxes they're building that are Thunderbolt 3 compatible, they don't have the circuitry in them to do that speed at all. They only go up to 1,300. So even the Thunderbolt 3 units that are 4 slot enclosures do not do more than 1,300 right now, 1,375 or whatever it is. So there's no point in worrying about that yet. What we need to do is optimize what we have, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I want to do speed tests as soon as I get these drives hooked up. I hope I've explained that now well enough, but it's a long story. I can see that now. But anyway, the serial number of the second drive, which was installed in the single unit. I need to copy that second time here from my other notebook. Second SSD drive, there it is. I'm getting to learn these numbers already almost by heart. It seems like I know these numbers now. I'm familiar with them because they both start with the same series of numbers, and then it diverges at the end, the last several. I don't need to specify too much here, but there we go. I got to make very sure that I'm writing the correct, if I can, to be as sure as I can that I'm writing the correct number 2. This is number 2, right? Okay. Is number 2. So I'll say 1 and 2. I'll put numbers beside the notes that I'm taking so that I'm copying it from this one into the other one, though, as far as the actual serial number. So I'm not going to give you the serial numbers, but I'm just going to check that they're in fact identical. And they are for the second one, so check the first one again just to make extra sure. That's the way we need to be, is thorough. Meticulous and thorough. I almost read the wrong one, see? But at least I'm not writing here, I'm just checking. So if I read the wrong one, I can read it again. So that looks absolutely correct. I need to be far enough away that my eyes with these glasses can focus exactly here. Yep, we got it. We got it right here. So we got exact serial numbers. So now this is installed inside. I need to write down now the actual. I still need this book. I need to. Well, once I've transferred the data, once I've transferred the information on the I need to get it right though. I got to concentrate. I could get it on the internet too. I could check. That's the thing. If I go to I'm on the website, right? If I go hard drive enclosures 2.5, click on that, and I'll get the actual product. This is it, the 3.1. And here we have it. Generation 2 up to a certain speed. Now spec. I need to know the actual model. What is it? Oh, the manual, yeah. Oh, here it is. No, it just has it has a number right at the top here. NST. I can tell you this number, that's for sure. It's NST. It's the model number 270A31, which I've read before. I'm not hiding that. It's NST 270A31-BK for black. So I think, and that's what when it was installed inside that with the serial number. It's a single enclosure though. Single drives, yeah. But this is single enclosure, so I'm going to say single enclosure. And I'll underline enclosure because I underlined drives just a second ago here. Single enclosure. So then I need to put the serial number for that, and then I wrote that down before, so I need to add the colon here for the other serial number just in front of it. Okay. So this one, I need to get it correct, and let's not write the wrong one here. Let's get the model number. Yep, that's it. Make sure I'm writing the serial number corresponding to the 270A31-BK, and there it is. So I almost wrote the wrong one again. Very easy to get on the wrong line with your eyes. Wow, I don't remember that number. I remember writing one of the digits of that number because I had to write it sort of twice. But so I know I wrote that down, but I need to check that. I need to get the actual enclosure now and check that to make sure. Okay, I'll just double check that, and I'll plug it in too while I'm there, I think. So as I go around to the back, I'll put the other new notebook on top. I'll plug this unit in and see if it detects it. Hopefully it shouldn't crash my system or anything like that. That'd be crazy, eh? But I really want to plug them in the same device. I can't do it, can I? I mean, how can I do this so that I can see the light? I won't be able to see the light is the problem here. See, I don't. Well, I know I said I could plug it into the Universal Bus 2 serial bus, but that's too slow. So how do I do it? Is the question. I think one way. Well, I can't really turn this unit sideways, right? I don't have long enough cables. But what I can do, here's what I can do. No, this is a special cable. This is a special cable, but I can unplug. Yeah, I can. What I can try is unplugging the one I've got plugged in, and see, it should be okay though. I need to eject it, or do I? No, it's not mounted, eh? Let me see. If it's not mounted, then I can unplug it. But if I unplug it, it may not detect it anymore. Oh, okay. I need to plug in the battery for my